Okay. I hit that MF record button. Should have
Should
hooked him with gas.
not use video because it's gonna hurt your connection, which I imagine on your phone is already tenuous.
I'm on Wi-Fi. We're kosher.
Okay.
We're kosher. I mean, Pocky just thinks I'm ugly. He doesn't want to see my face, but true.
I'm
Yeah.
also gonna say, especially the last several times you've been using Camp, like I'm not looking at you. I usually have the Skype window minimized and I'm Googling stuff.
That's very, very fair and obvious in the clickety clacky noises that we hear in the background. Um,
Switch keyboards now because of that problem. And
don't
my
switch
laptop.
keyboards because of that problem, but yeah.
It was more work because like I had started using it again once I got a better, like I improved my setup and I was using the laptop keyboard and then I switched and people like, I think were nice about it for a few weeks. And then after a couple months, we're like, all right, that's really fucking annoying.
Well, I'm
It's,
surprised. So, like, on the Skype call, I don't hear it at all. I hear it in the individual recording, right? Because Skype does, background noise, blah, 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 blah. And so I'm surprised that people at work were hearing it through whatever equivalent background noise reduction, blah, 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 blah. You know?
I think it's specific to when I'm talking.
I
Like
suppose.
they don't hear it otherwise. Like my mic won't unmute, but they do hear it when like if I'm typing and talking, it's harder to hear me talk, supposedly.
Interesting. Um, yeah, so as I alluded to, I don't know if I was recording at that point. I'm on my phone because I'm at my in-laws, and as a result, I actually have an excellent topic for us today. I got here by traveling, flying. I missed my flight.
What?
Thank you, thank you, Delta, for getting us on a new one.
We're
That
sponsored by now too. Crazy.
Wait, was it not
Random
the airline's fault? Did you just like straight up miss?
okay, so yes, we just straight up missed. It was our fault, 100%. Um, but also, I mean, it was our fault. But I'm gonna, be annoyed because I feel like it shouldn't have been our fault. So like,
Oh, I can't wait for this explanation.
no, I mean it's just like it was worse than we expected, right? Like, I mean, it is what it is. Like we made a mistake, and that's
Oh,
okay.
driving into Denver and just like navigating the airport.
No, it was security specifically.
Yeah.
So our flight out was at 5:45, so we woke up fucking balls deep early, right? Like we woke up at
Mhm.
3:30. We got out of the house, like on time. We drove to a parking lot. We made the tram that we were planning on making, right? So like we didn't miss, like we were not late on our schedule. It's the fact that our schedule itself was not accounting for the absolute absurdity that was a security line at Denver International Airport. Like it was absurd. Like I I've not flown a ton in my life, but I've flown enough to the point where like I've never seen a line that long, and it was fucking stupid. Like it it wrapped well beyond the security area, well beyond the extended security area where they had put up the queue lines, all the way to like you literally walk in the door and the line's there. Like
I mean,
as soon as you walk
it is
in,
Memorial Day
Oh,
weekend.
that is crazy. Yeah, I was gonna
it
say,
is.
if you travel during like major
So
holiday weekends, because usually it's pretty insane.
So apparently that is maybe part of it, but also like we had a friend, someone I work with, like flew out to Colorado, and then they mentioned it was like, oh, security is really bad. So apparently it's not just a Memorial Day weekend. Like apparently like security at Denver Airport just like. Well, and here's the fucking crazy thing: is it was moving quickly. There was never a point I was in the line where I wasn't moving forwards. It's just the line was stupidly long.
Mhm.
Like I just like it's like we literally walked into the airport and we're just like, we're gonna miss our flight. Like we got off the tram. We walk inside. We're just like, oh shit, that's a really long line. Keep walking. Oh shit, that's a really long line. Fuck, we're gonna miss our flight. Right? Like we realized it like, within a couple of minutes of walking in. It's just like there's literally nothing we can do. Like, I like we've flown out of that airport many a times, and like security is fast, and like we plan based on prior experience, and we made a mistake. So it is, and so Delta hooked us up, and we got here like 2.5, 3 hours after we were supposed to. It really wasn't bad at all. Like it was actually super, super lucky, all things considered.
Do they not charge you extra for the tickets? They just like same tickets, just somewhere else?
So that's the crazy thing, right? So like
That is nice.
like so we're here for a wedding, right? And so Susie's in the wedding and I'm not. Susie's friend. And so when we missed the flight, we're like, shit, and so here's actually, it's the standard thing, like for those who have flown, like in the US at least, and I'm assuming this is probably similar throughout the world, but like at least in the US, it's when the boarding gates close and they close the door, it cannot reopen. That's it. That's the end of the story, right? And so it was super sad because like we make it up to the gate and like the plane is there, right? Like it hasn't left.
Yeah.
The door is closed.
That
So
shit
it's
sucks.
it's just like because you're just like, it is, and that's why it extra blew too, is because like, it's like, man, we were within, minutes. I mean, like probably like 10, 15 minutes or whatever, right? But like, it was, our planning was off, but it wasn't that far off,
Yeah.
So like security could have been bad, but it was really, really bad. Anyways, getting slightly distracted. But so then it's like, okay, we get to the gate and she's like, okay, we'll go down there and you can get on a phone, and all the phones there were dead except one. And so we give it to someone else because also like 6 people missed this flight. Like we were not the only ones. It was a lot of people who missed this flight. And so we give the phone to the other guy, and then we like, because we're like, Susie, like I said, as soon as we walked in, basically we knew we were fucked. And so Susie literally started a chat with Delta, like while we were waiting in the security line, she preemptively started the chat. And so we're like, you take the phone, we're already in this chat, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, oh, well, your ticket's economy plus, or no, economy basic. So like, we can't, you can't change it or whatever. And so you just have to buy a new one. So we're like, fuck. And so we start looking at the prices in same day. And so it's like $500 to $1,000 a ticket. And so like, we had to start asking ourselves that question of like, okay, well, would she go and I just like leave the airport and go home, right? Like, is it actually worth an extra $500 or $1,000 just for me to come up? Which is just like, being in that scenario sucks balls, right? Like, no one wants to be in that scenario of like, how much is it worth to be at a friend's wedding, or like in my case, like wife's best friend type wedding, right? And like, it hates to have to like put a monetary value on that. It just sucks, right? Like, don't put yourselves in this position that I did, right? Like, just get there, like, fuck it, just like do the thing that's always wrong. Like, that's the thing is, they're always like, okay, for domestic get there an hour early and international get there 2 hours early. And I think actually recently they changed that. Like, they literally say for domestic get there 2 hours early.
The thing is, like Danny always do. Because Danny, she's an experienced traveler, and so we always get there hella early.
But isn't it always super early, right? Like, I used to do that, and I would get through security in 10 minutes and then sit in the airport for an hour and a half doing
Yeah. But that's how it goes, right? When you over prepare, like you never need it, and then when you don't, you always get screwed. So you should might as well always do it.
So if it's actually important, over prepare. If it's not, do the thing that works, right? Like, is probably my 2 cents here.
I mean, your exact experience is why they tell you that, right? Like, it's literally just because airports specifically do not handle congestion well. Like, they flow fine when there's not that many people going through, but when they spike, like, things spiral very quickly.
Here with fucking security theater you have to go through for no fucking reason. Like,
also, it's just, yeah, I mean, yes.
I was gonna say, like, I went to Germany a couple years ago with my grandfather, and we flew in and out of the Frankfurt airport, which is one of the largest in the world, and like the like main absolute hub for everything in like continental Europe. Like, it's a huge airport, and their security did not take as long, despite that, than like compared to anything I've done in the U.S., which is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so like, I don't know the last time you all flew, but like, it's also so hit or miss because like, so sometimes, and like, I swear to God, I've flown out of Denver in the past 6 months to a year, and they said, don't take your laptop out of your bag.
They change your bag through. Yeah, it's never consistent.
They literally said, the laptop out of the bag, and I'm just
Yeah. They don't know. It's literally security theater. It's just security theater.
so dumb.
Awful.
This thing. Well, because then then I want to do another, like that same trip, for example, right? Like I flew back from wherever I was, and I left my laptop in my bag, and then I got yelled at, and I was like, but flying here, I was able to leave it in the bag, and they're like, well, it depends on the airport. But then again, literally the same airport is a different.
Yeah,
country, and I'm just like,
they don't know what the
it's so
difference.
stupid. It's so stupid. So yeah, you're right. Security theater. It's literally the best way to describe
Hate it.
it. Anyways, I'm gonna tie this all in. So, you all know I'm super cheap, right? Like I'm unbelievably
Yep.
cheap. So in preparation for this flight, I started 2 free trials. One was Pandora Premium for music. Shout out to Groupon in this case. Hashtag not sponsored.
We have a lot of sponsors this episode.
But there was a 3-month trial for Pandora Premium on Groupon, so that's what I did. So and then downloaded a bunch of music to my phone. That was trial number 1 I did. Trial number 2 was I did a 3-month Apple Arcade trial from Best Buy, and it was play games on the phone. And so I gotta say, so on the first flight we had a layover. On the first flight we actually just watched the movie and didn't play any games. And it was called A Man Named Otto, by the way, and it was a fantastic movie, and I would strongly recommend A Man Named Otto. Starring Tom Hanks. If you are a human being with emotions, you will probably cry during the movie. I didn't cry because I was on a plane with public people, like people I don't know, and so I was like, yeah, just you just swallow, right? Like you just kind of swallow or whatever, and so like your throat kind of gets sore, but you don't cry. Man Named Otto, great movie. Anyways, second flight, I'm like, okay, I did this Apple Arcade subscription. Let me actually like put it to use. And I started playing Packy's newest next favorite game. I guarantee it. It's such a good game, and I cannot believe it's hidden behind Apple Arcade.
I
So-
so severely doubt this.
It is a really good game. And to be fair, the second flight was actually really short. The second flight was only like an hour and a half, so I only did like an hour 15 minutes of it. But like, and it was very very fun, and I got 10 out of 88 achievements on Apple Arcade Game Center or whatever. But so since I said it's Packy's favorite game, can you guess the genre?
It's a roguelike. It's
It
a
is-
mobile roguelike, so I really don't believe in it because I still have yet to see one single good one.
Okay, so then remember that Apple's Arcade's entire like value prop is that these are not mobile games. I mean, they are mobile games, right? But like, it's not the gotcha. Like they like to be on Apple
It's not
Arcade.
premium.
You cannot have in-app purchases to be on Apple Arcade. You cannot have ads, right? So like they're going for complete packages, essentially, is probably a good way to describe it. Okay, so the name of the game is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate. And yes, it is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles roguelike, and it is actually very good. Again, only spent an hour or so playing it, but like it was. I mean, take Hades and then put fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle skin on it. And which I didn't get to take advantage of this, but because it's TMNT, obviously, it has to be multiplayer. So it's multiplayer up to 4 people. It's Hades with a TMNT skin, 4-player multiplayer, and it's a great fucking game. Like, I am going to continue playing this game throughout the entirety of my 3-month trial because like it is just a very good game.
It's on both. I thought the whole thing with Apple Arcade is it had exclusives, but it's on
No.
Android.
Wait, it is on Android? That's interesting because
That's
yes, it is supposed to be not exclusive, but mobile exclusive. It used to
That's
be
weird.
a thing.
It says an Android iOS walkthrough. If I look it up on the store, it's not there. So I'm guessing it is exclusive.
Yeah, okay, so that makes sense then. So that's what I'm saying. So it is not exclusive, only mobile exclusive. And so like this game, like I would fully expect this to release on other platforms, other non-mobile platforms, right? Like Steam, Epic, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, because like it is a solid, complete, well-built game that plays well. And like I played on, obviously on the plane. I had a Xbox controller and a little like, $5 plastic clip for my phone. And so I played it on my controller or, with my controller on the phone, and like it was a fucking blast. It was so good.
Is the combat just because I know the story's got to be dog shit because it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I love, but is objectively bad storytelling. So I have to imagine it's the gameplay that's. I Googled it, and I'm not sure if it's in their like marketing plugs or whatever, but like every single blurb I'm seeing, like the first thing it says is, it's similar to Hades. Hades inspired, Hades like
Brexit shill.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meets Hades. Like, did they send you the marketing package?
I didn't. I didn't. That's the thing. I literally just like I did the 3-month trial because I knew I was gonna want to play games on my phone, and I just browsed the Apple Arcade games, and I was like, this looks fun.
And I think we've lost our friend to marketing. I think he got bought out in the.
He doesn't get paid for this. Greg is just the one. If you're curious, like, why do companies spam ads? They don't work. Like, Greg is why you can see it. He just repeats what they say.
It's a really fun game. I like it's a really fun game. Like that's like so the combat is.
He compared it to Hades and called out the co-op, and that's the two things in every marketing blur.
I don't know what to say. It's you play the game and you're like.
So, okay, question. How is it like Hades? Because to me, Hades is a standard roguelike with the uniqueness of the story integrated, like how like all the characters react to the things you do, and like it's dynamic feeling at least. And obviously the game itself is like super tight and like plays great, but like I've played a lot of roguelikes, not as many as Packy, but like a decent amount as like an average gamer. And like that's Hades' selling point to me is the art style and the dynamic storytelling.
Okay, so for one, Hades is the go-to roguelike, right? So when anyone ever wants to say it's a roguelike, they say it's like Hades. So
also very frequently the one action roguelike people have played. They haven't played other ones.
Like point blank, straight up, like Hades is top of mind, right? But to your point, there is actual similarities to Hades. So like. I can't give spoilers because I haven't fucking played enough to give spoilers. But like the premise of the game is, oh my god, I cannot think of the dude's name. What is the rat's name? The sensei.
It's Splinter. That's why it's
Splinter. That's why the game's named.
So dumb.
Oh my god.
Yes. Okay. So,
sorry. We shouldn't let that interrupt your explanation as to why the mobile game you played for an hour is just as good as Hades. One of the best.
That's as good as Hades. I said it was very good, not as good as Hades.
But you did compare it to Hades.
Yeah,
it is comparable.
I don't want to interrupt, but like, I feel like if you're somebody who has any knowledge of games in general, which like you are, I am, Packy is, I assume some of the articles Packy saw are like meant for that audience. I don't know. I'm gonna make a whole point, but it's stupid. Go ahead. We can continue with what you're saying. My point is stupid.
Yeah, make the point.
I was gonna say, so you both were like, Hades is the go-to roguelike, right? Yeah. But like, I wouldn't describe a game as like something else unless it actually was like that thing. Especially if like I knew the audience, us, or articles.
It's like that. All right. Especially because like sure you have the breadth of things, but then you filter out the 90% of the things, and then you're left with like the 10% of the popular things that like are names that people recognize, right? And then like at that point, like Hades is the number one in terms of roguelikes, right? Like,
I disagree with how I relate things to people, but fair enough.
Like for normies, including myself, because I'm a normie, right? Like that's
okay.
You pick a thing that people recognize, right? And so in this genre, this Hades. But no, there are actual similarities. Right? So getting it. Okay, so basic story premise is Splinter is sent to some other dimension, blah 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 blah, and so like your like underground layer in terms of Hades is your underground layer with your Ninja Turtle homies. In April, you have obviously permanent upgrades that persist throughout the game. So you play the game, you get currency, you get permanent upgrades. You also have per level currency or per run currency, which you spend at a shop and between boss levels, right? Like you're up for the boss. Oh, hey, look, there's this shop and I can do the things. I can buy the things. And like, some, very similar stuff. There are permanent like upgrades, which are, like kind of like upgrading the weapons, I suppose, in Hades, right? And then there are also artifacts, which are were they literally called artifacts in Hades? I can't remember, right? Like the
Powers? Or the weapons? Powers or the weapons?
It must have been powers because it wasn't
the boons.
Boons or the powers?
It wasn't the boons. It was the thing that like you pick beforehand. That's like, I guarantee I'm going to get a boon from Aphrodite or something like that type of thing.
Oh, it was Artifact Relic or something like that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but so yeah, like in TMNT, whatever, there's they're called artifacts, right? It's the same thing. It's like you pick beforehand and you can level it up. Like this is like it is a thing you pick beforehand that affects what's going to happen in that run, right? So very similar to that card. Obviously there's talking, right? So like you literally start the run. It is levels, right? Very standard stuff. You kill some baddies, you go to the next one, you pick a new boon. You kill some baddies, you go to the next one, you pick a new boon. You go to the shop, talk to the shopkeeper, right? Like this is where I feel like the comparisons to Hades really start getting like more prevalent. Is like it's not just yes, I killed baddies and I pick a boon. It's then you go to the shop and you talk to the shopkeeper. And then you go kill, some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle or whatever, and then you talk to that villain who you just killed, right? And then you eventually die, and then you go back to your home base in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle headquarters, and then you go talk to the spirit of Splinter, and you talk about how like, man, it was really sad when that boss said, "Oh, you're a sucker loser and you suck," and then Splinter's like, "It's okay, my homie turtle son. I love you and you have the strength to carry through." And then you go talk to April, and then April's like, "Oh, good job doing this thing. And here's this new artifact," right? Like it's extremely similar to Hades in that regard. That like in Hades, you got the thing, you gave it to, the people in the underworld, and then they gave you one of those relics or artifacts, right? It's the exact same thing. You go talk to April, and then like because you went and talked to her between these runs, she gave you an artifact. Right.
Yeah, dude. Keep going.
It is fucking Hades with a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle skin, and admittedly slightly dumbed down, but still.
It is not the marketing material. Yeah, I pulled up a gameplay walkthrough and I'm just skimming through it. There's a reason everybody's comparing it to Hades. It's just a ripoff. Like they've ripped everything. I'm not listening to the audio. Yeah, it's just like the dialogue looks exactly the same. How you pick powers is the same. The dash is the same. Like changing the weapons. I'm sure aspects are in here as well. Like it is very clearly directly going for that. In a very transparent way.
No,
Highlighting of the characters.
Like
sure is.
It plays well, and like you talked about, like the dashes, it's sort of the same. Like the dash is the same, and like when you get boons, it's like, oh well, there are some boons that you can go with dash build, right? So like you get double dash, and like you do damage when you end your dash, and like stuff like this, and like, oh, you get a shield when you start the dash, right? Like or reflect projectiles. Like it is fucking Hades, right? Like it is Hades with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle skin, and it happens to have co-op, and it is a shame that it is locked behind Apple Arcade, right? Because like
I would actually play it.
This is a solid game. Like this is a really good game, and it is ridiculous that the only way you can play it at the moment is by subscribing to Apple Arcade. Because like I would, to be fair, I'm probably blown away because quite frankly, yes, my expectations were probably really fucking low, right? And because my expectations were so low, like it hit the minimum bar and then went a little bit above it, and that difference was massive, right? Because it's just you judge everything based on your expectations, and so because my expectations were low, it's just like it I was taken aback by how good it is. So yeah, that's what I got. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Splintered Fate. If you have an iPhone and you like roguelikes, do a trial for Apple Arcade. Play this game. Like I said, you can play with a controller, right? Like you don't even have to play with touch controls. You can literally play with a controller. It plays great. Like it's a great game.
Honestly, it's releasing at the perfect time because it's like it's about a month after everyone's gotten all fluffed up on the fact that Hades 2 is announced, but it's the reality setting in that it's not going to release until deep into 2024. And so now you have a mobile game to tide you over. Yeah, that's my only complaint about Hades, especially compared to some other roguelikes. Like I've played that game to fucking death. There hits a point where you cannot play it anymore. You just I want more of that. I just want a different flavor.
I think this would definitely scratch that itch then, right? Because it is
There are other Steam games. I mean, they're not the first to copy. It's just they're doing it with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so they're doing it on mobile and executing that well, so they're gonna get way more attention.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and so the way it kind of works is so you don't have weapons per se in the same way that Hades does. That's where it kind of differs, and that's not so much it differs so much.
Just have turtles who use different weapons.
Exactly, it's not as in depth, right? So like you have 4 turtles and you pick the turtle, and then like what's actually kind of interesting is each turtle has a passive trait, which is like some of them are like you regain 6 health every new encounter or something. Or it's like increased crit chance or something like that. So you have a passive trait, you have a what they call a tool, and then you have a special ability. So I think the passive trait and definitely the tool, you can swap out mid-run. All right. Like so some of your boons can be a different tool, right? So like one of them is like you start with you throw shurikens, and one of them is like you start with a tool that like pulls enemies towards you and stuns them for a second. And like you can definitely swap that out mid-run, which is kind of cool. But then the special ability, as far as I can tell, that is not swappable, right? So like that is definitive. So like you started this playthrough with this Ninja Turtle, and that is your ability for this run. Which yeah, you're right. It's like that's as close as you can get to the weapons in Hades per se. Anyways, it's very fun. That's all I got. I've been rambling for like 15, 20 minutes.
Clear to run in this game?
I have not. Again, only like an hour.
Noob.
So I will say, because I was thinking about, right? Like I was kind of thinking about like how far am I getting? This is my very first playthrough. So my very first playthrough, I beat the very first boss. The very first boss in that game seemed easier than the very first boss in Hades. I didn't beat the first boss in Hades my first run. I definitely didn't. And I did beat it in this game. And I was like, this game feels kind of easy. I was like, it's like, and maybe that's, whatever. And then I get to the second boss. And the second boss kicked my fucking teeth in. So, yeah, that's where I landed. Is the second boss kicked my teeth in. And I was like, okay, I got a bunch of currency. Let me go upgrade some stuff. Got an artifact for beating the first boss. Oh, exactly the same thing as Hades, right? The first time you beat a boss, you get a permanent upgrade for beating that boss, right? It's so similar. Like it's just a blatant ripoff in a good way, right? Like good for them. And so okay, let me go get the upgrades.
Never heard someone get a compliment for ripping off another game.
I think we've talked about this before. I think this is one of the places where video games are like it's a compliment. I mean, it's kind of like I
think games that take the concept that advance it, like no, because I think because it goes in both directions, right? Like I think you should applaud people who take a concept and add their own unique spin to it and kind of expand on it or take it in a new direction. And we should make fun of people who take those same concepts and are just like, cool, this was popular, and then just copy it in a shallow way. It sounds like TMT is mostly like a copy, but it seems like it doesn't do anything new with the concept.
That's true, and I guess it depends there on how you do it. Okay, what it did new with the concept, it did it on a phone and it did it really well. I mean, I feel like it's actually a perfectly legitimate answer. Like, to say these run on the phone? Nope.
No, but I think it's looking at the gameplay, it's definitely like a prettier, smoother running game.
Yeah. So I think that's fair. I think it's definitely like a hard line to draw. Like I was gonna compare this to when Weird Al parodies your song. That's how you know you've made it, right? Like Yeah, I think lots of
Oh, yeah.
folks are very flattered when Weird Al's like, I want to make a parody of your song. I'm like, oh shit, you want to make a parody of my song? Oh my god, Weird Al likes me. Oh my god.
I think even more so, they knew it with I think the discussion we were having earlier is the ultimate, like Hades has made it, where like you become the game that defines the
Yeah,
genre.
exactly.
Like action roguelikes have been around for a while. There's a bunch of them, but like, yeah, you always hear Hades first.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's why I got playing around, played some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Gonna make a bunch of money if it's monetized well.
Well, at the moment they can't monetize it. The monetization was thank you, Apple, for your money. The end.
This probably works better that way.
I like again, I'm shocked this isn't on Steam. Like it feels like it should be on Steam.
No, I think adding it to mobile was a good thing. As much as like I don't want to say what I was saying earlier was not to like condemn the game and like they're shit for that. It's more they just took the same concept and translated it to mobile because mobile expands it to a new audience who otherwise would never have seen anything like
Which
that
again
Hades
is,
game.
I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is then very important for that purpose, right? Like it's literally like, yes, let's take a formula. The formula works really well. Let's put it on a platform that exposes it to billions more people. And then let's slap a familiar and beloved IP on it again to expose it to millions more people, right? Like, so yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Curious with that. This is so very random takeaway from what you said, but I wanted to look up like do a billion people on Earth own a phone?
Oh, absolutely.
Dude, a billion, a seventh of people. Dude, there's so many countries where like technology is still is
Oh no. Those places where you think it's not that prevalent, those people still that like phones are unanimous these days, right? Like it's the whole what's it called? Next billion users is like the phrase in the technology industry. Like,
God. Where's the actual gosh darn number? Okay, yeah. So 1.1 billion people do not have access to electricity.
sounds like the other 6 billion have a smartphone.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what that means. I cannot get them to just give me the gosh darn number. I cannot believe this is not at the top of this article. I'm so deep into this article with them not giving me my number.
You gotta ask the AI, man. Here we
Yes,
go.
down to
2023,
the conclusion doesn't have my number.
the number of global smartphone users is estimated at 6.8 billion people.
No, there are approximately 6.8 billion smartphones. That does not mean that 85% of the population.
This thing said smartphone users. I don't know what to tell you.
Hey.
But anyway, so what's going on with y'all?
Okay, the majority of the group. I think I'm wrong. There are definitely billions of people have phone.
I was gonna say, like there's a shit ton of people that have phones. Like
I've only played 3 games. I finished out the 2 games I mentioned last time, which was Core Keeper and Hadean Tactics, and flipped. I think Hadean Tactics is better than Core Keeper, which I thought the opposite when I started playing them. I don't think those need an in-depth. I'm not going to give in-depth reviews of those games because if you're entering those genres, there's better versions of both those games you should try first. But if you tried those games, i.e., Stardew Valley and Slay the Spire slash one of the 8 million other really good roguelikes or Monster Train, you should try Hadean Tactics and Core Keeper. They're both good. They don't need more than that. And Ring Fit Adventure, which I hate. But continue.
oh yeah? Oh, okay. I'm very curious to hear.
I like Ring. It is a good game. It is a really good full body workout for someone who does strength training and cardio. It's a good way to actually do stuff you don't cover in just doing regular exercises. They gamify it very well, but it also highlights to me why I'll never do exercise classes because I'm consistently so angry when someone is positively trying to reinforce me when I'm tired and like brutally going through like on squat number 70, I don't want to hear you can do it. Like I just swear at the ring all the time because it's the ring who's talking to you. And so I'm just constantly swearing at it.
It's not the TV. It's literally from the ring.
No, the character on the TV is the ring. Like that's the gimmick. It's like your ring is your partner. Yeah, it is anybody who plays it will tell you. You get even if you are working out, if you put it on the appropriate difficulty, you will get surprisingly tired in 15 minutes of gameplay. And I set it on a super high difficulty when I started. I got this like got to be over a year ago now, and I play it every once in a while, and I'll get motivated. I'm like, I'm gonna beat this so I can say that I've beaten it. And I'm still not particularly close. It's long because, it wants you to work out every day for a long, long period of time. It's good though. It's worth it if you manage to get it on sale. I highly recommend going online and finding somebody who bought it and then decided they didn't want it because that must exist.
Less and less.
Definitely less common now. Actually, just wait for me to finally beat this game and then get it from me if you're really interested. So I have no doubt I'll beat the campaign and I'll never ever touch it again.
What about you, James? What do you got going on?
What have I been playing? I picked up Resi 4, the remake again, after trying to play it when it first came out and bouncing off it pretty hard because I'm really bad at games. Playing it on the easiest difficulty now is going a lot better.
It's fair.
Oh, I know what I've been playing. A little bit at least, here and there. So Warhammer, both Warhammer Fantasy and Warhammer 40K, right? Like the properties themselves, they always do a big event where they like announce a bunch of new things and do a bunch of big updates for any of their released games. And there's always a big sale on Steam for it. It's called the Festival of Skulls, coinciding, with their one of the evil gods in both settings. And a game came out during that was announced last year, I think, called Bolt Gun. Did either of you see that when it got announced?
No.
So it is a Warhammer 40K, which is, the Space Marines and orcs and, the really cool, really grim dark, where actually that term comes from, sci-fi setting. But it is basically a Warhammer 40K boomer shooter. So like Doom or Quake or any of those, where it's like fast paced and it intentionally has like pixelated graphics that are like really high fidelity, but still like pixely. And it is very good, especially if you're obviously like a fan of Warhammer, which I'm like a huge 40K fan and Warhammer Fantasy fan, but mostly 40K. Like I've been reading like 40K books since I was like a kid. I've played like a ton of the 40K games. Obviously, like I've told you guys before, like Dawn of War, the first one, is like maybe the best strategy game in my opinion ever made in terms of just like really, really, really nailing the scale of its setting, especially with mods. But yeah, Bolt Gun. So it's basically like the newer Dooms, or like any of the Dooms, I guess, where it's just super fast paced and it's a first person shooter. But it's just so good. Like it nails the feel of all the different weapons that like a Space Marine uses. And unlike something like Doom, where like you're fast, but you're still like, you definitely have like the weight to you. Being a Space Marine, who are, again, I don't know how much you guys know about 40K, but the Space Marines, were like the absolute heavy hitters of the like human empire in that setting. They're like fully decked out in huge armor. They're super genetically modified. They're not even like, they're like barely genetically human anymore because they're so modified. And they're just like super powerful warrior monks, but like they are meant to be extremely durable and also extremely fast thanks to all their augmentations. And that game nails that feeling so well because like when you're moving normally, like you're pretty fast, but when you sprint, you are so fast. And the audio design is not like the best. Like the Doom games, especially the modern ones, have like way better soundtracks than Bolt Gun has. I think Bolt Gun, that's its weakest point right now to me, is the music. It just does not hit as well as like the Doom games does. But the environmental ambient sound effects of hearing your footfalls while you're sprinting down a hallway at a bunch of like chaos demons is so good. It is fantastic. It's only like $20, and I'm only 2.5 hours in, it looks like. I definitely have a lot more of it to play. But if you are at all a fan of Warhammer 40K, it is absolutely fantastic. And also, I guess technically a celebrity, he's an actor, but he's not like a huge mainline actor. He voices the Space Marine main character you play as, and he's a actor that I really like. And also, he's been in a bunch of like one of my favorite YouTube channels. He is like an associate of theirs and like comes on every once in a while. I mentioned if he was the one that he was. Oh, I can't remember. I remember seeing the message to you guys, but he was in one of the last big game showcases like we watched or like talked about. Not the PlayStation one, but like the one like maybe towards the end of last year, maybe earlier this year. His name's Raul Coley. He was on iZombie. He was on Midnight Mass. Yeah, he's fantastic. Like seems like a really cool dude just based on like the YouTube stuff I've seen. He seems really funny and super cool. He's a good actor. Like he's great in iZombie and Midnight Mass. And he plays like the voice of the main Space Marine character in Bolgun that you play as, and it's just so good. It just makes me happy to see people I like who share similar interests and like are just cool. Like say like Henry Cavill, like being literally Superman, but also being like a huge nerd and super into like Warhammer at both fantasy and 40k and getting to be Geralt and everything. Stuff like that's just, I think, really cool. I'm not usually super into like celebrity culture, but I like that kind of stuff. Other than Bolt Gun, which again, highly recommend.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So you obviously looked it up. You were talking, and so I didn't recognize the name, but I then like saw the clip, and I was like, I had seen this clip, and yeah, no, like, I am not versed in Warhammer 40k culture, right? But like, but ignoring the culture part, like the gameplay itself, just like you were talking about, it looks like a nice, fun, like romp and stomp, shoot them up,
so like
beat them
crazy,
up, smash them up, blow them up.
See like the old 90s, like kind of a pixely art style with really high quality ballistics and lighting.
It's great. It's really pretty. Like it is so
a gorgeous looking game. That is very faithful to that style.
Yeah, like they said, the only there's two things that I wish it had or like that it did differently so far is I wish the music was better. Like it's not bad, it just does not like I love both the modern Doom game soundtracks, and then if you've ever played another really good game in that style of like Doom, like really fast like first person shooter is Dusk. I don't know if you guys have ever played Dusk or heard of it. Dusk is fantastic, and the guy that did the music for that is the one who ended up doing the music for the Doom Eternal expansions, because that was when what was his name, Mick Gordon. Yeah, Mick Gordon. That's when he dropped out and they had like their feud or whatever. Andrew, I think his name is Hulshult, Hulshult. But yeah, he did the music for Dusk and some other things, and all of his music's great. But then he picked up the slack and did the music for the Doom Eternal expansions, and he's so good. So yeah, I wish Bolt Gun had better music, and then I wish Bolt Gun had the same like kill animations for Melee that the Doom games had. The glory kills. That game would be so good, and like it's such a fitting setting for like a game to have like the glory kills like that, where you just like get up in a demon's face and like rip its arm off or something. It has the chain sword, but they just don't feel as good as the Doom ones. So if it had those two things, I think it would be like as good as any other of that genre. Like it's so good. I can't wait for more of it.
And the glory kills, I'm curious. So the glory kills in Doom are kind of similar to the executions and Gears tactics.
Yeah,
not
Gears or like even just like yeah, exactly.
Kind of the high risk, high reward. So like, is there a similar concept in both sides of like, let me go get rewarded for putting myself out there?
Doom, and especially Doom Eternal, like really, especially Eternal, they really show you how every single thing you do impacts the flow of like how you play the games. I don't know. Have you guys played a Doom Eternal, like, or even like the original modern Doom? Either one of them?
I played Doom 2016. Okay. I've beaten 2016. I haven't played Eternal yet.
So Eternal, so like 2016 is fantastic. I think they're both great, but they're different. So like Eternal is way more gamified in the sense that every single action you do is, like I said, all about continuing your loop and cycle of like, staying alive and everything. So like in Doom Eternal, if you do fire damage with like the shoulder mounted flamethrower, it like makes enemies drop armor, and that's like how you replenish your armor, is by like using that. And if you kill enemies with the melee, it gives you health, and if you do this, it does this other thing. And because they're all on cooldowns, you're basically supposed to like cycle between them to keep all your health and armor and ammo and everything up, right? Bolt Gun definitely has something similar, but it is not as explicit about it. Like I never got a pop-up that was like, doing this gives you this. And I had to figure it out on my own, and then I noticed like some of the loading screen tips kind of tell you between levels, but obviously like those are random, so like you never know like which one you're gonna get between the levels. But it kind of does. So like when you kill enemies, when you kill the daemons specifically, they drop that game's version of armor, which is called Contempt, because like Space Marines don't need armor, like they obviously have it, but like they don't have armor, they just have their like innate hatred of like everything heretical and alien, because that's what 40k is all about. And then I think when you kill human enemies, like normal, just mortal enemies, they drop health. But like those systems are not nearly as explicit as something like the Doom games. So
do those drops, do they despawn, or are they there?
you're moving so quickly, and the levels are definitely a lot shorter than something like the Doom games. So I haven't seen anything despawn. So like it's you can like do those like in like one encounter, put those down, and then if you move on to like the next part of that like stage, as long as you haven't like gone to the next level, you could I guess could always backtrack and grab those things. And then like ammo is not tied to like enemy deaths like it is in Doom Eternal or Doom 2016. It's just kind of there on the level. But yeah, it's definitely very. It's just not as gamified as, especially Eternal. Like Eternal is, like I said, like super gamified compared to even like Doom 2016. It's honestly a like pretty different game.
Do you mind if so before you go on to what else would the other thing you've been playing? Do you mind if I sidetrack us off of something you said?
Do it.
So I personally really dislike games where they don't explain it.
Yeah.
Like I understand that's like that's actually a whole genre of games, arguably, of the just like we're gonna plop you in here and we're not gonna explain shit. You're gonna have to figure it out. Right? Like and like, yeah, sure, you can like at least for the basics, like go look at the controls and like, maybe map stuff, right? But like I don't know, like explain your fucking game systems. Like and again like that I don't know that's my opinion. Again, that's my opinion. I'm curious how you two feel on it. Like, and for me, it's definitely just like please explain your fucking game systems. Like like people are just gonna look it up, right? Like I get that you want to be clever and secretive and whatever, but like let me tell you something, buddy. Everybody's had the internet for a really fucking long time now, and they're just gonna look up how your bullshit systems work anyways. So like just put it in your goddamn game so I don't have to go do that. I don't know.
I think it depends. Because like I think something like Elden Ring, like obviously the FromSoft, games, they definitely don't always explain their like bigger, grander mechanics or like their story beats, but I think they do a good job of explaining the actual gameplay stuff. Like Elden Ring, maybe not like outright tells you every little thing, but it like you definitely know how to play the game itself by just playing like the first little bit. Like it gives you a lot of tutorials in the beginning. There's a whole tutorial little mini dungeon in Elden Ring that's optional that you can drop into, and it'll tell you how to do like backstabs and parries and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
And
I think
from what I've played of the Demon's Souls remake, the one that came out on the PS5, and from what I've played of Dark Souls 1, the original one, and Bloodborne, some other FromSoft games, they always do some version of that. Now, obviously, they don't explain the bigger story beats because that's just how they do their storytelling, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. A lot of people get up in arms about that, like saying that Elden Ring has bad storytelling. I think it just doesn't have direct storytelling. It's a different kind of storytelling. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but
my 2 cents is I agree. Right? Like if you have to choose something to just plop a player in and let them figure it out for themselves, I would rather it be story and world.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
100%.
For sure. I think you look at something the other way where like I didn't personally have a problem with it, but I know like there's definitely parts of the gaming community that had issues with it. But like God of War Ragnarok, where the companions almost immediately, like pretty quickly tell you how to solve puzzles and stuff. Again, I didn't have an issue with it, but because to me that's what it feels like the characters would do, right? Like Atreus would be the kid trying to help his dad out and immediately being like, "Oh, Dad, I think it's this." Like that stuff makes sense to me from like a world building perspective, but I get why people get upset about it, right? And you can like turn it down in some games, but I think that might be going too far. So I don't know. I think as long as there's options. And as long as, like you said, it's not the inherent gameplay mechanics, I think it's okay to be a little more like indirect or like obtuse or like not obtuse, obscure about it. So I don't know. That's me.
Becky?
It's I think games have always tried to make you want to explore their mechanics. I think different games do it better than others, and I think a lot of games today rather really, really good. You're a Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda type game where it's really fun to get into the physics. You're a more simple movement-based game, like some of the fighting games where it's just really fun. You want to play with it, or you have a bunch of passive effects that are just affecting numbers in an annoying way that's really obtuse, and you still don't tell people because you think it's somehow fun for people to figure that out. And people are going to the internet within, like 15 minutes of getting into your game because they realize you're not going to properly explain it and they want
Definitely had
play
to
it
do
the
that
optimal way.
in Elden Ring for sure. Some of the like passives you get from like items, it does not tell you.
Yeah.
But
So I think,
you know,
yeah, it's just game to game. So I think like different people do it well, and I think everyone's wanted to like want you to explore it and experiment and learn new things and provoke your curiosity is something games are always trying to do in many, many different ways. But now with guides and summaries and YouTube pages that are dedicated to summarizing them and taking out the thinking part, you have to be really, really enticing to get people to engage with that part of your game.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's fair. And like, James and I kind of talk about it. It's like it's like everything. It's that balance, right? So like,
definitely.
it's you don't want to drop them in with nothing, but you want to leave maybe a little something, right? And so like, it's kind of like, okay, well, at a minimum, at very minimum, give them the basics, even if then there's like, here's how things work. Now go like, so in my mind, there's you can say here's how things work, and then like here's how some things interact, and then like but like there's more, right? And then you can dig in to find out how like multiple things interact. Like that's where it gets really complicated. It's not just like one or two things, but it's how different game systems and different game mechanics interact with each other. Like it's one thing to let players explore that on their own, but honestly, I'd still personally rather than just spell it out. For me, 'cause I'm a fucking idiot and I don't have time for this shit. But like I still think that's like fine-ish. But like when you straight up don't even explain the basics, I'm just like fuck you. Like straight up, just go fuck yourself. Like
I think too, looking at like I'm not a developer, obviously, but I think looking at it from the developer side, it's got to be tough for them too, because there's every single chance that no matter what game you have made, it will be that person's first time they've ever played a video game. Because like I know you guys have played a ton of games where the first half hour is identical between every type of game that is. Think of every third person action game ever, and the first 30 minutes is going to be your character waking up or doing something where they have to like learn to walk and look around, and like it's always kind of hidden by the story, but it's always exactly the same. Or you'll like look at the path ahead of you as you start walking, and there'll be a tree that's fallen, but it's not so close to the ground that you have to crouch, and like it's always like, maybe you should crouch in this, maybe you should jump over this little ledge that's coming up, and it's all identical. But like that could be anybody's very first, like somebody could go play Elden Ring right now and that's their very first video game ever. So like I'm sure as a developer it's really hard to balance those things too, because like obviously you're going to have every single person from every level of experience on there, so that's got to be really tough.
I also think we're kind of screwed by like the day and age of the in-game tutorial where like what they teach as opposed to the old days where like paper manuals solved these problems by people who knew
miss those.
games who just not read it.
You bust open the plastic on the car
Yeah.
ride home.
Yeah,
GameStop,
I miss it.
You read the manual on the way.
I miss it so much.
They were fun. And like I don't understand why there's not, because now we have phones, right? You could literally just publish this on your page and like tell people like, hey, go to our website and look at our
I mean, like
game.
Steam has that for a lot of its games. If you go to like a lot, not like all, I won't say all, but a lot of their games will have the manual. I think on the Steam page itself, if the game obviously has one, which like that's pretty cool.
Well, and now instead of the car ride home, you
Websites.
have the download, right? So you used to browse the manual on the car ride home, and now you browse it while you're gaming.
Yeah, here's a manual.
Not do that. My new form of that is now like Googling a mechanic and then someone's like, when you find the page that's Googled it, it's just usually an index of like various things about that game. It's just a guide. Guys just fill that role now. But I think they're just unnecessary. And yeah, it would be less obtuse if games would just publish that information themselves and hand it to you in an easily Googled way. Because that's where people are going to go first, right? At least I'm an idiot. I'm not going to the Steam page. I'm just Googling like how to jump in this game and then clicking on the very first thing because I'm confident it's going to have what I need.
You guys ever scroll through the like Steam community guides for any game, and there are so many people doing the bare minimum of how to jump in this game, how to turn the game on, how to start. And they're obviously all just like meme troll guides, but like there's probably somebody who needed that for whatever game.
No doubt. But I don't know who's going to that page to get it.
Yeah, if they don't know how to do those basic things, they probably don't know how to get to like the community guides either.
Right.
Some of the community guides though are like actually super good. I don't know, like sometimes I need help in a game, and the Steam guides are great. Somebody put in the work sometimes, and I'm always impressed.
So this was actually one of the selling points of Stadia, rest in peace, was and I don't think it was ever realized, which is probably why it's rest in peace, right? But like one of the selling points was like you could be streaming a game and then you could be stuck at a thingy and then you click a thing and like it was smart enough to know where you are in the game and then it could find you like a YouTube video at that point that you were in the game to kind of help out with specifically what you were doing. Like it was kind of like context aware, like let me go find something and not in the manual but in a YouTube video, right? Like and yeah, I don't think it was ever realized, but again, I can play it like a normal person, so like I don't actually know, but I'm assuming it was never realized.
I feel like that'd be hard to do, or more specifically, that would be not worth the resources that it would take.
I feel like Steam has tried to do something like this with achievements. It'll use your achievements to get a rough idea of where you are in the game.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
That's cool.
I feel like I've seen it. I feel like I've seen this once.
I wonder if it's like just implemented on like super specific games or something.
Yeah, and I know
I've
you know
never
what? Maybe it's not
cool.
them. It's PlayStation. I think PlayStation's the one.
Oh, PlayStation does do that. Yeah, the 5 definitely does do that. Yeah, I always think that's cool, and a little like weird how it's like it knows where I'm at, and I'm like that's both cool, but I'm also like, what's going on? No, it's I like it a lot. Everything's already out there. It's fine.
But so James, I totally sidetracked us.
No, you're fine.
Your follow up to Bolka.
Other than that, I mean, I've been playing City Skylines. It had its last DLC come out before the second one comes out later this year, or early next year. I've been trying to actually do a city in that game without using like the unlimited money cheats. It's hard. I'm really bad at traffic management. I've been playing modded Skyrim again, which is Skyrim is such a comfort game to me. Like I love Skyrim so much. I don't know. I mean, I'm ready to play Diablo 4 tomorrow because I paid for the early access. So, you know.
Fair enough. And lots of people be like, stop pre-ordering games.
Yeah, I was waiting for the reviews. It got good reviews. And tomorrow's one of my days off. So I was like, hey, if I can play tomorrow at 7 p.m. my time on my day off, like, why not? You know?
Yeah, I feel like in this case in particular, it's like they did multiple, early access beta things. And like, the perception of that was good, and then the reviews themselves are good. So appreciate pre-order and anybody who's like all.
And it's not like I pre-ordered it like 8 months ago, right? I literally pre-ordered it 2 days ago just to get the early access for tomorrow. Like,
yeah, no, that's fair. I mean the all play looks excellent for sure. So we're about at an hour. But then I realized as we were talking, there were 2 other things I wanted to mention. But I'll probably try and get through those quickly. So one. We had in a previous episode talked about Grand Theft Auto. You guys had enlightened me that it's not just spotting tanks and beating up hookers. Yeah. So I bought Diablo 5 on the Epic Games Store during their summer sale, kind of an Epic coupon or whatever they call it. So it was like $11 or something for Grand Theft Auto 5. So I haven't played it yet. Bought it. And I'm excited
very good
to try it and actually play through the story and not just spawn tanks and beat them.
Very, very good.
And then second is, so we were talking about it directly, but we had brought up the concept of it's always important to have a good balance of like dropping people in without explaining anything versus like explaining things and like trying to strike that good balance of like not pissing people off who played a million games but also making it accessible to people who never played any. So a different concept of balance, and actually kind of speaking of Diablo, so I had mentioned I played through Diablo or Borderlands 3. I bought the DLC for it this past weekend. I started the DLC. I started the Handsome Jackpot or Moxie's Grand Heist or something. That's what it's called. And more importantly, this is really my first foray into mayhem mode. And I am disappointed to find out that nobody can achieve good endgame infinite scaling And what I mean by that is I feel like every time I play one of these games, a Borderlands or a Diablo or a Minecraft Dungeons, something is always screwy when you get to the really, really end game, right? Like in terms of either you die too quickly or it takes you way too long to kill them, right? Like I feel like for some reason I've never played one of these games where I'm on world tier or hell difficulty or whatever you want to call it, or mayhem level 10 or 5 or something. And I am both killing people and being killed at a good equal rate, similar to the initial story campaign. Right? Like, do you guys feel that way? That like it always feels like you either kill things way too slowly or you die way too quickly, right? Like in Borderlands, I ended up scaling the mayhem up to the point where like I felt like I killed things at a good rate. Like it wasn't too quickly, it wasn't too slow, because like I was worried initially I was killing things too quickly. So it's like, okay, let me ramp up the difficulty. And then when I ramped up the mayhem difficulty in Borderlands 3, I literally got one shot. Literally, like a certain thing hit me and I got one shot. I was just like, okay, it's kind of lame. And I was disappointed to see that because I feel like it's every game. I don't know. It's some do it better than others, but like I feel like it's really for some reason really, really hard to achieve that perfect balance of infinitely scaling difficulty while simultaneously having both good damage taken and damage received numbers. What are your all's thoughts?
It's the problem that games that are trying to do something that's like either procedurally generated or borderline procedurally generated to keep you in that infinite loop face. And I think when difficulty is tied to, yeah, damage and health, and that's the main driver of difficulty, it's almost always bad, if not just flat out always. That's why you see more modern games copying what like Diablo's done with modifying elite enemies with mechanics. Like, wow, so many games are doing like it's hard to list all the different games that are doing that. Like
Yeah,
Borderlands, WoW, Diablo,
Enchant,
tons.
enchanted mobs.
Exactly. So they just add new mechanics, but now everybody's finding with that as well, like you can also hit mechanic bloat. I mean, long story short, like I think the infinite treadmill is like everybody reaches their point. I think that point is different for everyone, but you're not going to be able to do it infinitely. You will hit a point where the game feels bad. Even if you're still
Yeah.
able to do it, doesn't feel fun anymore, and that's when you stop.
Yeah, hopefully maybe Diablo 4 will somehow magically make that even better. Who knows?
It will not. But
It almost certainly will not, but one can hope.
no, it's just like, but it'll be fresh when you first start playing it, and you'll be at the very bottom of the difficulty curve, and then you'll go through the natural part of the difficulty curve, and then you'll hit the artificial part where they just infinitely scale it, and then you will at some point along that treadmill hit the end point where it's no longer fun. But by the time you get there, you'll probably have played 40 plus hours of Diablo.
Yes, that's fair.
Saying something.
I'll
40 plus
just
fun hours.
give my take on it just because like it's for me, I've always definitely been somebody who's super into like power fantasy of games, so things being a little easier is never a problem to me for the most part. So if things scaled that way, or like if they do scale in a way that makes things harder but you can turn the difficulty down, and even then it's like a little too easy, like that's usually fine to me because like I play something like Skyrim or Diablo or whatever to like be an unstoppable like monster person that just tears through enemies. Like to me that's enjoyable to get to that level where you can do that. So I don't know. When things feel too bullet spongy is when I have a problem. Like not if they're hard, when they literally take too long to kill, I'm like, I don't care about this anymore.
Yeah,
That
no,
saps all the joy. That's one thing I like about Greg. I talked to you before because we played it together a little bit. Division 2, I think, does a good job of having, for the most part, some parts of it are definitely bullet spongy, but the enemies definitely gain more abilities and like AI intelligence the higher you go in like the enemy faction difficulty settings. So like they actually require more thought and like you have to like flank them more, they'll flank you more. Like that kind of difficulty like is way better to me than something just getting more health, which is something I think Destiny does, where I love Destiny, but man, some of the enemies are way too tanky and like it's awful.
yeah, I agree. Especially like especially compared to like the Division 1, right? Like the Division
Yeah.
1 really suffered that.
It did. It had some of what 2 has, where like the different factions as you go higher into the difficulty level, like will have way more tactics and like will be more difficult that way, but they definitely were more bullet spongy. The second game does even more of like the manageable difficulty scaling and still does some of the bullet sponginess, but it's not as bad as the first game for sure. It's definitely still there because that's just kind of a thing, I guess, for like all RPGs. But
yeah, that's what I ended up doing in Borderlands 3. I turned down the mayhem difficulty to the point where I killed things I killed things quicker than I wanted to kill them, but I also didn't get one shot. So and I was okay. I was okay with that, right? Like, because I mean, I'd rather kill things too quickly than to. And then it's just to the point of like, it kind of sucks because every single Guardian rank I get from this point is just going to be put into defensive perks, so that I can eventually turn up with it. Like, and I think that's what feels lame is I am almost never going to pick an offensive perk in that game because like I feel like the killing people is not the problem. It's the fact that as soon as I turned it up, I literally was getting
too
squishy. Like, and so like it's like okay, so like something's got to give, and it's just like and that's kind of where the fun is. You got to build around it and whatever else. But it's hard when you only have one option to build, and maybe I don't only have one option, and I almost certainly don't. But like it felt like when I played it the other day. So we'll see as I get more into it. That being said, the first hour or so I played of Moxie's Grand Heist at the Handsome Jackpot was excellent. So Borderlands 3 is such a good game.
I need to go back, and I never did the DLCs.
DLCs are really good.
The hour I played of it is really good. So like it's in general, like if you like looter shooters, like someone asked on, I just remembered something else I wanted to mention, which like totally gonna be quick about it because I haven't played it yet. But someone on Reddit was like, "Oh, I'm looking for this. I don't have a lot of time," and I kind of like blah blah blah. And someone was like, "Borderlands is still the best looter shooter," and I kind of wanted to respond and been like, "I don't think that it depends on what you want, right? Like, because if you want, like, Borderlands is not Destiny. Borderlands is not The Division. If you want those games, you will not be satisfied by Borderlands. But for what the person asking the question was basically like, I don't have a ton of time and blah, blah, blah. Like, Borderlands 3 is the best option for that person. It is a fantastic looter shooter. You can pause the game. It is not always online, and you can pause it. So, like, depending on what you want, like, it is the best for that, like, for what you're looking for in that case. It's just, everyone has different tastes. Other random Reddit thing that I'm gonna end on.
Yes, please.
I was gonna say, don't worry. We are ending on this.
To say, we also didn't talk about the PlayStation Showcase last week. Can we spend another 40 minutes?
I know. Yeah,
I really do actually want to talk about that. We don't have to do it today, but I really do want to talk about that.
No, we should. And I mean, there were so many cool things, like between hardware and games and everything.
Yeah,
for sure.
Go ahead though with your final thought.
The random thing is I'm curious to play this game because it sounds very similar to Pacu. You said like, oh, I just played Slay the Spire and I streamed it to my phone and I played it with touch controls. How can I not find this game? It is they called it a Pokemon-esque game, but it just got added to Game Pass and it is cloud streamable. And I think it is also Cassette Beast. Yeah, I've heard it's good.
Really cool. Yeah, I tried it. I did not vibe with it. I'm curious if you guys like it though. Everybody else loves it. Like again, as you guys have seen, everybody loves this game, and I tried it a little bit, and I barely got. It's another classic Game Pass. I got about an hour in, I was like, no.
And again, that's what Game Pass.
Yeah,
Game Pass. But yeah, so like, I look forward to. I'm probably going to try. I don't think I will ever play it on my console. I think I will only try to play it streamed to my phone, because I think if I'm on my console, I'm going to be playing something else like Borderlands. But like, it looks like a fantastic game to play streamed to my phone.
It'll definitely work on phone.
So yeah. Anyways, yeah, that's all I got.
Cool. Yeah, curious to see what you think about it.
It won't be no Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shredded thing. But
yeah, it'll be different. It'll be different than the game it's copying.
I mean, again, seriously, like, or splintered bait, sorry, not shredded bait. But yeah, if you happen to have an iPhone and you like 80s, give it a trial and give it a go. It's actually really good. So, all right. Thanks guys for joining me. It was a shame not to get to do this last week, but it's good to catch up this week. So hopefully I'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week.
Bye.